And cool. We are recording. Hello, everyone. Hi, Mike. I don't think we've met before. It's good to see you here. So yeah, this is the Mir Office Hours for May 5th or May 21st. Sorry, 2024. So quick overview of the agenda. We're going to want to go over the actions from the previous meeting. The possibility of getting some Miriway configs in Lubuntu and xubuntu. What we decided at our sprint last week about, what we're doing specifically for a lot of desktop stuff coming up in this next 6 months. Portal support in Mir, adding that, which portals we want to support, which are important to support. The in progress Mir 2.17 release, upgrading to Core 24 for all of our snaps, and hopefully we'll have time to schedule a meeting like this in the Pacific time zone, so more people like Simon and others can get on there, and then we'll leave some time at the end just to talk about anything else that we have going on. Cool. So now I see I'm sharing a tab, so you can't see the previous meeting. Oh, well, I could just share this tab instead. But, well, actually, maybe first I should start with this. Inez, do you have any specific thoughts? I'll inject this at the start, like gives you your bet to leave. Any specific thoughts and feelings about Mir and potentially actually creating a Mir backend for what you have going on, and maybe explaining a little bit more what you have going on?
Yeah, can do. I can explain a little bit. I'm very new to all the Mir stuff, so I'm fully planning on picking your brain, Matt, on this kind of thing. But yeah, I maintain an X11 window manager called Penrose. It's a Rust project that's kind of in the style of something like Xmonad, so it's more of a library that lets you kind of write your own window manager with some sort of opinionated defaults and kind of interfaces for doing kind of layout and workspace management, that kind of thing. The idea was always to be able to support Wayland as a backend or other backends other than X11, but I've, as with many kind of hobby project kind of things, never got around to being able to do that, didn't have the time for it. But the kind of stuff that Matt's been doing with using Mir as a backend for a window manager looks really cool. And the way I've got Penrose set up, the code kind of splits kind of quite neatly down the middle into a kind of logical set of APIs that don't actually have any interaction with the X server, that are just managing your kind of window state and workspaces as a big kind of tree data structure. And then a kind of diff and render kind of model for pushing stuff out to the X server for kind of actually making that do something useful rather than just play around with trees. So if there is a way for me to sit that on top of Mir and then kind of bundle that all together, that would be really kind of cool. So for me, it's more just learning from you guys on how this stuff works. And if you have time for having chats about that stuff, that would be very, very cool. But I think it would be kind of a fun way to kind of apply that kind of front end that I've got onto something that's a bit nicer than Xorg. So that'd be good.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's something I'd be really excited about, like actually, proving that Mir can serve as the full backend for that thing, and it just works. So long as we don't have too many X concepts mixed in there, it should be good to go.
Yeah, there shouldn't be too much. There's a couple of places where I've got things that I've wired in to let you do things around kind of querying X window properties and stuff like that. There's nothing that's kind of load bearing. It's more kind of bits and pieces that just let you kind of conditionally target specific windows or programs and stuff like that. So there'll be equivalents for that. There'll be things that I can work out, but it'll be a little bit of work to kind of unpick any of those things that are kind of wired in a bit too deeply. There shouldn't be too much there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we could. Hopefully Mir exposes enough of an API there that you could get the same info by poking whatever you need. Although X does provide a few more things usually, if I'm not mistaken, like WM class and all the X attributes and stuff.
Yeah, but none of that stuff is kind of critical to the core kind of functionality, if that makes sense. It lets you have
Yeah.
more flex, like as with everything, like if you have more metadata to play around with, there's more kind of fine-grained stuff you can do, but it's not like the window manager won't work at all without that
Okay.
information. So
It's mostly for cute things and effects. Yeah.
yeah, so little things like kind of saying, okay, if this application opens up, pin it to this virtual workspace, or
Okay.
have the layout conditionally like be aware that, okay, like GIMP, for example, with all of its kind of like extra windows that it spawns, like being able to kind of say, cool, that looks like GIMP, I'm going to lay it out in a specific way, that kind of thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but the core functionality doesn't care about that at all, so that should be fine.
Okay, awesome. Looks like a good candidate.
That'd be cool. That'd be a very good one to take a look at.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks, Ines. Yeah, so should we hop right into the things that we went over from the previous meeting?
Sounds good.
Cool. Let me see if I could share this tab instead. Did that just work? Beautiful. So yeah, previous meeting, if you weren't there, we were talking to Neil and Simon pretty extensively about all of the things that were missing from the Mir implementation that would enable, full desktop environments. So I'm going to go over these briefly because we sort of have it in our roadmap about what we're going to do about them more or less. But it starts with server-side decorations. If I recall here, the action item was enable existing X11 decorations for apps that ask for server-side decorations. Right. So right now, what we're not doing is when a Wayland window says, hey, I want server-side decorations, we're literally just, I don't think we implement the protocol, or maybe we don't respect that decision yet. So
we don't implement the protocol.
Okay.
So I've raised the issues to implement the protocol, and in the initial pass, just to expose the X11 decorations that we provide. Obviously, we want to make that more general, but that's yet another issue that was raised around the same time, and Neil's been linking them together.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that would be, at least this little task here would be an easy win for that. And so then we got into input capture. Oh, wait, never mind. This is an output capture. Input capture was kind of funky, so maybe someone else can talk about it better than I can explain it.
Well, it's probably best to skip down to the italic line, which says action.
Talk about portals in Madrid.
We're talking, yeah, exactly, which we did.
Okay, cool. And then we're going to get to that in a second. So I'll kind of skip through this really fast because we have screen sharing here, remote desktops. Fractional scaling is actually a work in progress, so this is ongoing. Spoke about a little bit about documentation, that it was moved to read the docs. So if you haven't seen it there, you could go check out that link, and that's where all of our documentation is moved. And yeah, then we talked about this meeting, whether or not it works. Seems like it works. Whether or not we could, I put it on Ubuntu on air on the YouTube channel, and then AOB is, what does that stand for again?
Any other business.
Any other business. Yeah, and oh yeah, we talked about Miracle WM being on Fedora, and actually the change proposal for that just got accepted yesterday or today. So it will be an official Fedora spin, so that's pretty cool. So now I will jump over to the tab of this meeting, and we can get this underway. So the first thing we wanted to talk about are creating Miriway configs for Lubuntu and Xubuntu. Is that, oh, Savik, go on.
Yeah, so I think we, since Simon and Neil aren't here, those are probably the people that we want to talk about this with. So I think we should punt this to the next iteration.
Cool. Sounds good. I will do that. Cool. So then we could hop straight into the 2410 roadmap. So these were primarily items that came out of our discussions last week, specifically for the desktop that we wanted to fix and support. So I could go down them, and if anybody has any comments or wants to add anything, we could talk about them, but I'll try to give a brief explanation of the problem for each. So the first were random little desktop usage paper cuts. So for example, our Alt+Tab behavior is not so great and focus gets all messed up when that happens. And this includes Alt-Tick as well. So, we have a lot of focus problems there and we're in the process of fixing it. So that is the main thing there. We want to immediately, or at least have a configuration to allow you to lock after your screen is locked, the idle timeout period should change. So let's say your original idle timeout's like 5 minutes. Maybe when the screen locks, you want it to be 30 seconds so it goes dim. So that's
slightly wrong.
It's slightly wrong. Okay, go on.
Yeah, so we want to have the screen lock after the idle timeout. And currently, there's no way to implement that with the APIs that are available.
Okay, but I imagine
it's both actually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, both ways, because it's either the locking kind of triggering the idle timeout in a sense, or at least the display is going off, as well as the other way around. The idle timeout goes, then we also want to lock the screen rate.
Okay. Cool. Yep. Oh, was that a hand raise? I need to drop out. Okay.
Just carry on.
See you, Ernest. Cool. So yeah, documentation. We are going to create a new tutorial for Mir and read the docs. This tutorial is basically going to walk you through setting up a really basic Mir compositor. And then we're going to have a bunch of accompanying how-tos regarding specific things, like how do you add XWayland support? How do you make a global keyboard shortcut or something like that? So that's the intention there. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts in that realm, but that is our main goal there. Cool. So the other thing is migration to Atomic KMS. I don't think anything else can be said there, but good in-flight update. I don't know if anything else needs to be said there, but we just need to do that work. That API has been available to us, and I know Chris is the one who is most focused on implementing that. We're going to add support for styluses, so that should, in theory, be pretty easy. We just have it from lib input, but I'm sure there's some paper cuts there that we're going to have to fix. And
one thing I can add there is for stylus support. On the one hand, it's just supporting a stylus is valid, but it will greatly improve the testing capabilities, because from the outside, you injecting input through the kernel APIs, you have to go through the input, which applies acceleration to pointer movement when it is relative. So one of the reasons why we're doing this is to improve our testing story and have absolute pointer control through this.
Cool. I will note that. Awesome. Yeah, and then lastly here, we mentioned global shortcuts, but I'm beginning to think that belongs under the portal section as well. Yeah. So that brings us to portals. We want to start supporting portals. to some extent in our, we have to spec out the specifics of how we're going to build it first. But we want to start with global shortcuts because that seems like a very, a very mundane starting point, I guess, but it'll actually get a lot done and let us do a lot through portals. I don't know if anybody wants to expand on that there, but that is more or less our game plan in that regard. I don't know if anybody has anything to add, though.
Well, I think like the gist of it is that where portals exist, and depending on the actual use case, we will probably err on the side of portals than Wayland extensions, because if nothing else, the portals are more widely used, and mediation is easier as well, because there's existing ways to mediate, to integrate with, for who is even supposed to be able to create a global shortcut or whatever else the portals are. So the plan for this roadmap, and that's why I put global shortcuts there in that portal in general, is that the global shortcut is, we want to be our kind of first venture into desktop portals proper in Mir, and hopefully be a basis for others to be started off.
Cool. All right. If there's nothing else on portals, we could skip over to the Mir 2.17 release. So that is, remind me the status, but it is in the process of being released at the moment. It is not yet hit the Mir team / release or whatever it is, right? Cool.
Correct, but that's just because nobody pushed the button, I think. Like, we have no reason to not push it through, but just we were busy last week, effectively. It's the biggest reason, so we'll get to it this week. Follow up with all the snaps that are built off of it, and call for testing for those.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, so I don't know if you want me to, if you guys want to look at the specifics of that release, but we can.
Well, I think the only person that may not be aware is Mike. What do you feel?
Well, the overall, can you understand me? Can you
Yes.
me?
Yeah,
okay.
All good.
So the overall question is, as I know that Chris and Marius a little bit in Lumiri have been working on QD-Mir, bumping it forward to be compatible with Mir 2.16. What are the API changes, or will there be more stuff that we need to actually put into QD-Mir?
So Chris is the only one that's going to be certain on this, but my understanding is that he has a a draft PR against Mir to change Mir oil slightly, and that he thinks that contains everything that will be needed by Qt-Mir to restore its current level of functionality.
Okay. So,
but it hasn't been done yet, so he's not going to sign off and say, yes, that's definitely everything.
and it's not in 2.17.
It's not in 2.17, no.
And will it enter a point release of 2.17, or will it be 2.18 then?
It will be an ABI change to Mir oil, so that would be 2.18.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Cool.
Yeah. So as I'm also the Debian, one of the Debian maintainers of Mir, so we will probably hold back the major Mir upload until 2.18 has been released. Then.
Yeah.
Just that you know that.
Yeah. We're aware. We discussed this, and we didn't want to delay the release basically further because of that, but we are going to commit some time to getting that fixed. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Thanks.
All right. I can actually just jump on and talk about the whole Core24 story. So this is primarily about snaps, and well, snaps are our primary delivery mechanism of things that we do at Canonical. And so we've now migrated all of the things that we care about in the Mir team to be based on Core 24, which means that they're based off of Ubuntu 24.04. That also means that our focus of development is now Ubuntu 24.04. So 2.17 and any possible patch updates to that will be the last release that goes into the Jammy story, and everything else will only go to 24.04 and above. We have not yet switched the default tracks of the snaps to 24 because, like, we need a little bit more runway on this one too. There's a lot of kind of machinery and call for testing that we need to run through. But that's more or less the status of that. We'll be working on that these coming weeks.
Awesome. Cool. And yeah, the thing after that is scheduling for a Pacific time zone, but I don't think any of you would be in that time. I don't know where you're located, Mike, but I believe that would just be me, Simon, and Chris.
CEST.
Okay.
Europe.
Okay. So yeah, let's do that next time.
Well, I think we should just do it kind of offline outside of this meeting then, and let's try and schedule the next one for the Pacific time, but basically do it offline. So between you and Simon and Chris in Element, well, Matrix is as good as a medium as any.
Okay.
I think that could improve their availability. Hopefully, like try and schedule it with them so that it's in a better time for them, because I think it's early morning for Simon right now, which is why he can join.
Yeah. So don't worry about me. I'll try to hop in if it's not just in the middle of the night, but
Great.
even if it's early morning, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And yeah, is there any other business we'd like to talk about?
Well, I have one thing that came up in this meeting. We are actually working quite hard on getting the Mir 1.x dependencies out of Ubuntu Touch, which will not happen with the next major release of Ubuntu Touch, but basically there is a list, and the list is not ending. And one thing is that I really got interested in is the portals bit you talked about, because we have this thing called Trust Store in Ubuntu Touch, which is basically something like a portal, but it attaches itself to the Mir 1.x API and creates pop-ups and whatnot via Mir client. So we'd be really interested in what you will be working on there, and we need to find a replacement for this Trust Store thingy. Yeah, it basically is for controlling. Do I have access as an app to a location service? If yes, if not, but the policy is please ask, then there is something coming up, and that's, I think, as far as I know, mediated for Mir. So that is one thing. The other thing is that we are currently in the process of finding more people who are knowledgeable about Mir and who are willing to actually dive into Qt Mir, and Lumiri System Compositor, which also needs porting to Mir 2. something. And well, as Alan maybe has already realized, I'm not so deeply into that. And so I have people in the company who could sort of do a learning curve on it. We even have a sponsor for that. The sponsor says, I mean, we in Ubuntu Touch, we have Marius and we have Alfred. And we have Rachanan, but then that's the three at max who are knowledgeable about this. And we would like to, so we is also the sponsor of Ubuntu Touch, the Dutch guy. We would like to increase the number of people who know this, who know the consumption part of Mir in Ubuntu Touch or in Lumiri. And as I said, we have funding for that. So if you stumble across people who are already into Mir to some degree, and would volunteer in picking up a task, and maybe even as a paid contributor, please let me know. Yeah. The other thing is, if we don't find this person or such a person in a considerable time, it will probably be Mir and Robert. Tari is a guy from Vienna, Serbian and Hungarian guy from Vienna, who will actually try to learn as best and much as possible about Mir. And then I'd be happy to sort of have people, and I think Chris is on the list at the top, who we can nudge with questions. So, and if we ask too many questions, then please tell us.
I'm sure you're aware that we are very happy to field questions from the Ubuntu Touch community and have been doing so.
Yes, yes, I noticed.
So feel free to ask questions.
Thank you.
We will simply ignore you if we are too busy, as
Okay,
you've
good.
also experienced from time to time.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's great that you've got some interest there. Yeah, only people that I know that are deeply into consuming Mir are people that have previously worked on the team, so you're probably as aware of them as I am.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and me, which I don't know if I count, but I've never been on the Mir team.
Okay, but you're knowledgeable. Okay.
So you're willing to help dive in and do some programming for the Ubuntu Touch or Foundation.
Well, I don't know if we'll go that far.
Okay.
But
So
I
we have
have
one.
been interested in Lomiri before, right? Like I
Yeah.
looked at bringing it to Fedora. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, and I think the reason I stopped was at the time it still required Mir 1x, and I had just updated to Mir 2x, and I didn't want both. So, I mean, it's something I want to revisit at some point, like bringing Lomiri into the Fedora stack, because there is a burgeoning mobile effort in Fedora, and Lomiri is interesting. And then there's also people who want a Unity-like experience as well, and Lomiri provides a Unity experience on tablets and desktops as well.
Yeah. So we have the same reasoning in Debian, actually, and but it also means to liberate Lomiri or former Unity 8 from Ubuntu-esque patches here and there.
Right.
So
well, that was the
account
other problem.
servers to start with, and yeah. So but feel free to use what we did for Debian as a templating system. I mean, packaging format is slightly different, but we try to kick out everything that is either Mir 1.x specific or that is Ubuntu account server specific, and try to get as much functionality into generic Linux. So as opposed to everything working on Ubuntu, but not so well on other distros. So this is currently an ongoing process, and we're not there yet, but we have funding for that, which is good. I actually have to reapply now this week. And also there's quite some cooperation going on between people from Alpine Linux, people from NixOS. So actually the NixOS packager has done a really good job in fixing all the CMake bits of Lomiri, where hard-coded path and something like that, were in the code. So it's good. But at the moment, so the challenge I face in Debian is I would like to see Lomiri System Compositor being a thing. So having a smooth transition from login manager to the user session, which is not working at the moment. So we have this traditional MS-DOS cursor blinking for 2 seconds, and then the session comes up. So we would like to get rid of that, but Lomiri System Compositor, which is an underlying graphics stack, requires Mir 2.x porting, and it requires, I guess also we need some LightDM patching to allow LightDM to sit on a Mir compositor.
Well, you could also use SDDM and tell it to use Mir System Compositor.
Say it again?
So SDDM is unusual among login managers in that you can tell it to use
the KD, you mean? Yeah, but we have these indicators, and we have some interaction between login session and we'd like to have a smooth also look at field experience from display manager session.
That's all controlled by your greeter theme. Like since the Lumiri people are all QML people, like writing an SDDM theme that actually fits with that and actually plugs those integrations in should not be a difficult task for them. And then SDDM's architecture allows you to use whatever compositor you want, and then you can plug that in and go it. That's probably a better approach than using LightDM, because LightDM is horribly outdated in terms of being able to integrate with Wayland-based environments, as in it doesn't have anything. It can launch them, and that's about it, but it can't run its greeters can't run as a Wayland environment yet.
Yes, we're doing that. We're doing exactly that.
With what?
With LightDM from Debian.
Yes, but
So-
there are.
So
I mean, there's
actually,
a
we run a greeter that starts a Mir session, and the whole Wayland simply and LightDM just we tell LightDM you will have a Wayland compositor, and then Mir comes up with Lumiri in greeter mode basically. So that works, and I was really surprised seeing that work. In fact,
I mean, I'm surprised too, considering the pull request for adding this functionality has not been reviewed in 4 years.
I think that's a different cup of tea. Actually, that is so what is happening in Ubuntu Touch is that the greeter of LightDM is running nested on a Mir compositor already. I think that's the tricky bit, which this PR, I think is it from Marius or from Chris? I don't know. Yeah.
It's from Marius.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is the one that adds support for using for Wayland just out of the gate in the display manager code, but it was never merged.
So as what I can say is, in Debian we tell LightDM to be a Wayland, to have a Wayland greeter, and then we fire up Lumiri in greeter mode as a greeter, as a front end for LightDM. And from there on, we log into a Lumiri session, and we have 2 seconds of a DOS prompt, well, the blinking cursor in text mode, which we want to get rid of, which sounds like a simple task, but it's not, because you then need this system-wide Mir compositor starting up, and then LightDM as LightDM user sitting on top of that, handling the login, vanishing, but the background stays and Mir stays, and then Lumiri comes up. Also on the
Wayland socket has to be handed over. That's basically what has to happen. The sequence in which things have to happen is login manager brings up Wayland compositor. Wayland compositor starts Wayland session. Instead of quitting first and then launching the Wayland session, the new Wayland session needs to launch, and then the socket needs to be passed over to it. Then the login manager compositor needs to die, and then it switches over. However, doing that has the problem of you can't kick back out. So it has to either stick around or do it by switching a virtual terminal, launching it in another VT, and then switch afterwards. This problem also happens for KDE, because for KDE, we have SDDM launching Quinn, and then we have the actual desktop in Quinn, both Wayland. SDDM attempts to launch the desktop in the next VT after the one that the login manager is in. And I think this is the same technique that LightDM does, because I know a lot of the techniques in SDDM actually come from LightDM. The problem is that you can't actually launch something in another VT without switching to it first, and that's where the 2 seconds of the terminal show up in.
But it stays on VT7 both.
Really?
So, yes, but the greeter gets stopped, pause.
Okay, so if the greeter gets stopped, you get the same effect.
Yeah, exactly.
So for SDDM, the greeter never gets stopped. We switch VTs and then do it.
Yeah, so that's our challenge, and the sponsor would really deploy Linux tablets to schools. So he's really into that. And
couldn't you smooth out the login experience somewhat by, with your greeter, simply not tearing down the display buffer on exit.
So actually, on Android devices, as far as I got from Nikita, the Russian guy in UBports, he says it's possible. You can simply take a screenshot, leave it on, so leave the buffer there, and rip the greeter underneath away, and then start the session, and then continue with displaying. I'm not sure how we should do that in mainline Linux with the VTs switching and whatnot.
So that's what Plymouth does, right? To get smooth boot from Plymouth to the greeter and then to the session. Well, I'm not sure about GDM and the session. That I think is slightly different. But yeah, Plymouth just gives away DRM master effectively, right? So then it doesn't die, but just gives someone else the right to pick up the GPU, and the VT switches then, and the new compositor comes up, and the first thing that shows up on screen then is whatever the new compositor draws, right? That's the kind of modern-ish, I suppose, approach to a lot of this. Obviously, in Miriway back in Unity 8, we had the system compositor that was meant to be the kind of high-level story there. Well, and that's something that we will ultimately need to get, where we will ultimately need to get with, like, without config VT. Once VT are not a thing, then things like that will again be trickier and more fun. But to get, for example, any kind of visual transition between user sessions, you need something to draw in between those sessions, right? So that's why the system compositor exists.
Yeah. So, but do you recommend actually going another route and trying to simply hold the frame, the buffer content and keep it shown in whatever way outside of Mir and outside of Miri as a greeter?
I can give you we did that for Mir and Ubuntu Frame, handing off directly from Plymouth, from the boot screen to Mir as a compositor, and that works. But like, to have another layer in there, then yes, you will have to make the greeter behave in the same way, right? So when it needs to have a way to tell it now allow somebody else to draw, right? There is a bit of a privacy, I suppose, concern in there, though, between the greeter and maybe not so much. Like the other way around, right? So, for example, when going from the session to the greeter again, or from the session to shutdown screen, that's something where privacy is something of a concern, because the next process can actually read what's in the buffer, right? So that's not, But then again, like, that should be a trusted component one way or another. So I think that's maybe not that much of an issue, but I'm just raising this as something that we've considered when kind of talking through this.
Yeah, you need to blur the screen to great extent so that whatever you see is, well, it's not full privacy, but a bit more. Yeah.
So another way to do this, I know Mir doesn't have this yet, is you could lease from the display manager to the desktop. So there is a protocol that lets you delegate DRM devices without resetting the buffer. That's DRM lease. And typically this is used for making VR headsets work. But you could use this, it's written in such a way you could use it for anything. And you could use it to delegate to a child process that's in another context the actual DRM device to bring up the graphic stack. And that way the buffer never gets reset from the main display manager. And then after the lease is done, you could also then do a handover afterwards and then quit if you wanted to. There's a bunch of things you could do here. I don't know if Mir actually has DRM lease implemented. I would guess no. But implementing lease would allow you to have, like, essentially a agnostic handoff strategy across compositors as long as lease is implemented. Lease is implemented in Quinn. It is, I believe, implemented in WL roots. But I don't think, and I didn't see it in it. Mutter has an MR open for it, and I know Mir doesn't have anything, at least based on the Wayland.app website. But like that is also an option. Is like you could use lease and lease the from the login manager to the desktop, and that actually might also reduce the chance of artifacting because you get to hold the buffer pristine by the system compositor and then go down. One of the downsides to some of the other approaches that Mikhail has mentioned is if you have an EFI buffer in the middle, sometimes it'll show up because reasons. I have actually no idea why it happens, but it definitely does. Enough people observe it that it's a thing. But like the issue is that normally when you release a DRM device, the Linux kernel resets the graphics card. That's actually what causes the problem. So you need to avoid resetting the graphics card, which is actually very difficult to do in most circumstances.
So maybe also with the booting process from Plymouth to the first greeter Mir compositor window, we always get kernel error messages in between. So I guess that's probably related to how in Debian everything is integrated with one another, which is it's not. Yeah. So every package is a package, and one maintainer and another maintainer, and they need to interact to get things smooth. So I think I'm looking forward to this README. So because that's also an issue. So we would like to have some Plymouth, and then the greeter comes, and then log in, and then it's just one thing, the whole beast, and not first act, second act, and you have a break in between. So we'd like to get rid of that. Yeah, so that is the mission that I'm currently looking either for external expertise to some extent. Funding is not unlimited, and also where I'd like to gain more expertise company internally, so that the people I have on my payroll actually get more knowledge into that. So there needs to be a mix for that. Okay, so I've dropped this here, and if anyone has more ideas or how to get things more smooth regarding graphical transitions when using Lumiri and Lumiri Greeter and whatnot, I'd be happy to hear from you.
So the last link that I dropped in, Mike, is exactly about how to make Plymouth not go away effectively, because that's the thing that causes you the Plymouth to whatever is next problem. Is by default, the services are set up so that as soon as you reach the graphical target, then Plymouth is told to quit. So you have to kind of make some tweaks. And so my README for the smooth boot with Ubuntu Frame basically condenses that into how to do this on Ubuntu Core with Ubuntu Frame. But like this Arch wiki has a little bit more maybe details on how to achieve this. And yeah, that's maybe that's something to at least get you through the first steps of this.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, we will try to put as much of the knowledge we gain into deb packages, so that the overall idea is that also in vanilla Ubuntu, which will then be one of the next half-year releases, or the 2604, which will be the final goal, you just do an apt install Lumiri, and then it should just all be working and working smoothly. So that's the overall idea. And in Debian, we're test casing that and staging all the changes we do. Yeah, and also there we have a stable release upcoming, so it would be cool to have as many things running, fixed, glued together as possible, which is in a year from now, so I guess. And of course, we are upstreaming back what we can.
Cool. Any other thoughts about that or anything else?
So I'm going to start looking at bringing Miriway into Fedora. probably soonish, mostly because, meh, why not? Also because it will actually be useful for some of the things I want to experiment with. The other thing I want to bring up is I would like for somebody Mir representative of Wayland protocols to review / act this protocol, which is XDG top level icon. Matthias Klump, who works in the free desktop space to try to make applications work on Wayland, has written this protocol because scientific applications are often multi-window SPI, and he wants a way to do this. Essentially, in principle, everyone kind of agrees that this is fine now, but he is struggling to get people to actually write the word act and write that they're okay with the formal looks good to me. And I'm asking that if you guys could provide one of those to make it so that this can actually land, because it has been a Herculean adventure for him, and I would like him to actually be able to have it land so that it can start getting implemented. KD, Qt, SDL, and a few others have committed to implementing it once it is merged. So I would also like it if Mir implemented it, but I'm not going to go so far as to say please implement it, but I would like you to at least review and maybe act it, please, if you could.
I can certainly ask my boss if I can spend some time on it.
Yep. I don't think it will take too long for you to look over it. It's a pretty sensible and simple protocol. But yeah. It doesn't really help for Miracle, but it would help for Miriway, because that's more stacking traditional desktop type thing.
That's a reasonable request. Just have to
Yeah.
see how it fits with the other pile of things that's on top of me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I know how it works.
Yeah.
That's why I'm only asking right now if you could give an act, because I think that's probably the easiest thing you could probably do.
Okay.
Because it's already got one act from KD. It needs 2 more, and yeah.
Okay. Well, I've got an hour before end of day, so there's a chance that something will happen.
Cool. Also, the miracle spin is now gonna happen.
Yeah, we heard from Phoronix.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's a machine. But it's now happening, so we can now start, Matthew and I will start actually putting together that spin and getting it set up. It shouldn't be that difficult for us to get it assembled, but this is also going to dovetail into, like, for Miracle, we have to figure out what the heck the experience defaults are going to be, and that's going to be part of building out the spin, and that will allow us to also start really having something that we can stress as a user experience with Mir.
Okay. So one of the agenda items we skipped over earlier was also around Miriway. As you may have noticed, there are some examples of trying to set up various desktop environments.
Yep.
But they've been done with no insight at all into how those desktop environments themselves hang together. And
Right.
it would be good if someone with a bit more detailed knowledge were to try and extend those examples into something a little more realistic.
I could take a look at doing it for one or two of them. That is part of why I'm looking into Miriway in the first place. So
it would be good if you could give us that bit of feedback.
Yep, sure. Yeah, like particularly with LXQt is probably what I would start looking at first, because LXQt doesn't have a quote unquote preferred compositor of sorts.
Yeah.
And I want to make, and it would be good to be able to have choices for that. And also, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I will give it a shot, and I'll let you know.
Terrific. Thank you.
So Neil, is the Miriway something that the Mate desktop could benefit from as well?
The what desktop?
The Mate desktop?
Oh, sure. If they weren't, yes, they could benefit from it. The biggest challenge for Mate is the biggest challenge for Mate is figuring out like how to plug in a way to use a different compositor, because so for LXQt, they've rewritten their display configuration tools and stuff to be able to use, WLR protocols for configuring outputs and stuff like that. Mate has no equivalent tooling for configuring a Wayland environment. So like when you put Mate in a Wayland environment, you're really not going to you're not going to be able to configure that environment from within it, because none of the tooling knows how to deal with it and stuff like that. In general, it seems, I reached out to one of the Mate developers 6 months ago.
Who was that?
And they were Wolfgang. And he's a little
Hesitant.
Yeah, exactly. I did not get the nicest reply back when I offered.
Yeah, well, that's Wolfgang is famous for that.
Yeah. If there's anyone else who's a little bit more interested in this, then I'm like, please connect me with them, and I'm happy to help in that regard wherever I can. But I think, yes, it's probably a path forward for Mate. Like long ago, the original reason I packaged Mir for Fedora was, I was asked to by Ralph and Alan, but also because the Mate people were considering using it to replace Marco.
Yeah, and there was this guy, actually, he was here in the team. I've forgotten their name. I think the name changed.
The one who was working on it.
Yeah, and so Mirko as a window manager, and then with GTK layer shell and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I was wondering where that was going at the moment, because
nowhere at the moment.
Okay.
Although it is certainly something that could be picked up. I think my general preference when it comes to these Wayland environments is that they pick a compositor framework and build around it and integrate with it properly, because it is really difficult to deal with it being fungible. Like one of the biggest challenges with LXQt is that because they refuse to make a decision, everything sucks. It is all horrible, and it is difficult. And yes, I don't think a lot of people enjoy the fact that you have to pick something and kind of stick with it and take that particular choice away. But it is, unless everybody decides to do everything by integrating with Wayland protocols rather than compositor libraries, this is how things are going to be. Now, we are very fortunate that Mir actually supports some of the widest array of Wayland protocols out there, from inputs to graphics to access to all this other stuff. But it still comes down to like the desktops or the window managers or whatever need to be adapted to be able to communicate with them in some meaningful way. So we could make a Mate environment. I don't think it would be terribly difficult to do, but then we need we need, the panels to be implemented with layer shell. We need the display configurators to be Wayland aware, and like there isn't too much that has to change, but there's just enough that has to change that you need a Mate developer to actually be committed to making it happen. And I don't know of one that cares enough.
Well, actually, Wolfgang created such a wave that Mate got forked to Coffee. So there's a Coffee desktop done by one person these days, and that person even forked GTK3 too.
Oh no, this is the CDK guy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And well, the other thing is that what do I want to say? So when we had the discussion about Mirko and so on, it was that the Mate upstream people were sent home actually to get rid of everything that is using GTK code that is X11 specific. So like GTK status icon and whatnot. And so I think that people worked on that, but I'm not sure to what extent. And if everything could be replaced by a X11 agnostic GTK code path. That was the idea at that time, which is like a couple of years ago already.
Yeah. From a GTK perspective, but from the desktop perspective is the specific tools that Mate ships. None of them are like for example, Mate settings, display settings needs to become Wayland aware. There needs to be somewhere to set certain things, and once that happens, then things get a lot easier. So like I can absolutely do something where we have Miriway work and launch a Mate desktop environment or even a budget desktop environment. And then you can use things like WL render, because I think WLR output management is actually supported in Mir, so those things will work. We can do that, but that doesn't change the fact that like the graphical experience is not integrated.
Yeah,
unless somebody wants to intercept xrandr calls and turn them into Wayland ones, which I don't think anyone really wants to do. That's a horrible idea.
Yeah, as far as I remember, such calls should have been gotten rid of. Yeah, well, at least that was the goal. So I'm not sure what. I'm also maintaining Mate in Debian, and I still have to do the 128 packaging. But yeah, it would be interesting to have a dual Mate, which is running under X11 just fine, but also in Wayland, and have all the acceleration and security benefits.
Yeah. But then again, that comes back to things like making sure the integrations that they expect are there, like top-level icon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those are all things that are expected to work. Them not working is a problem. We'll see how things go. But Mate is a desktop I worry about a little bit, because like their activity is so low, and I'm worried that they're putting their head in the sand.
Yeah, I agree. So, well, so some people have been repelled over the past 5 to 10 years. Well, 10, I don't know, but 5 years at least, due to the name person, unfortunately. Yeah, because if you don't do a shitload of work, you get yelled at. Why you're not doing the shitload of work?
Right.
Do it yourself. And this is quite a weird mentality, because every new contributor gets kicked out of the saloon. And it's anyway, it's off topic here, but I was curious if you were sort of having an eye on that as well.
I've had an eye on it. I reached out 6 months ago. I got rebuffed pretty badly. But it is still on things I'm keeping an eye on. I'm just currently focusing on LXQt, because that one's actually got all of their application and desktop components ported to work on a Wayland environment. It's just they just refuse to choose a compositor, which is annoying.
Yeah.
So you got to put one together, put a compositor environment together.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. I believe we are a bit over time here.
You're right.
And yeah, I think we should. I have to run in a second here, but and thanks for everybody joining us today. I don't know if there's any other final thoughts, anybody?
I think it's good to see some faces around here, and thanks everything that everyone's doing.
Cool. Yeah.
I tried hard to drag Marius here, but he failed. Let's see.
Next time.
I try again next time. Yeah.
Right, super.
Sounds good.
Shall I kill the recording then?
Yep, sounds good.
Yep. All right. I'll be publishing this on the Ubuntu On Air channel. So hey everyone on the Ubuntu On Air channel, and see you next time.
Cool. See you next time.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.